Okay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Life Sciences Grade 12. My name is Duduzile Kupeka. The topic for today is thermoregulation, structure of the skin. We are still under the main section of homeostasis. Ne? Now we are dealing with thermoregulation, whereby we are balancing out the body's way of balancing out the temperature. So at the end of this lesson, you should be able to understand the basic structure of the skin. Thermoregulation is the ability to regulate body temperature and to keep it constant, which then enables an organism to function at its optimum metabolic rate at all times. Such organisms are endothermic because they can generate their own body heat internally, as well as homeothermic because they can keep their body temperature at a constant level. It is mainly birds and mammals that are endothermic and homeothermic. So you understand the 2 points here? Endothermic means what? They can generate their own body heat internally. Okay. Internally. And then internally, endo means inside, right? So they generate their own body heat internally. And then homeothermic will remind you of homeostasis, right? Which is they can keep their body temperature at a constant level. Homeostasis is all about maintaining the balance, maintaining constant levels of either temperature or whatever in the body. But homeothermic refers to the body's way of maintaining temperature at a constant level. The ones we know, the organisms that we know, it's the birds and mammals. Those are the ones that are mainly endothermic and homeothermic. So please understand those two terms. The advantages of organisms being endothermic and homeothermic are it can remain active in all climates. We can survive in winter, we can survive in summer, we can survive in autumn, we can survive in spring. Why? Because even when it's hot, even when it's cold, our bodies can produce its own internal heat. Then we keep warm as well. We wear clothes and we keep warm. It can also control its body temperature. Wait, can I go back to the previous slide? Yes. And then this one here with remaining active in all climates, especially we as human beings, we wear clothes to keep warm. Animals have fur. Most of the animals, they have fur that keeps them warm during such temperatures, during very cold temperatures. And then when it's warmer, most of them would shed their skin, It's different for all of them. It can control its body temperature and keep it at the optimum for enzyme activity. This helps when your body can regulate itself, maintain its own body heat, and then also be able to maintain the balance. It can be able to regulate the body's temperature. That means it should anything change in the body that is maybe there's an increase of temperature, the body can bring it back down to the normal conditions. Should it decrease, the body also has the ability to bring it up to its normal conditions to maintain optimum enzyme activity. Why? I mentioned yesterday, we require the optimum enzyme activity because enzymes in our body function at particular temperatures. And should you change those particular temperatures, you alter with the structure of the enzyme. And if you alter the structure of the enzyme, it can either denature. And if it denatures, then it's no longer fully functional. It means then all processes that are regulated and controlled by that enzyme are affected. So suppose this enzyme is there for regulating the metabolic rate, and then it's denatured, then metabolism is affected, and ultimately the whole body suffers. Remember that, we are connected. I always emphasize that we are connected, and our bodies, you hurt one part, the whole body suffers. It can inhabit a wider range of habitats. That's why animals are able to roam around and move to different environments, regardless of the climate there, because of the the body's ability to regulate its own temperature, not affecting. When it regulates it, it makes sure that it doesn't affect the important parts in the body, the important functions of the body. The disadvantages, though, are it is metabolically expensive to maintain a constant body temperature. So more energy goes towards maintaining this temperature, especially when you alter the temperature conditions quite quickly. Like now in winter, you'd require more energy, even in summer, because then your body will you dehydrate. You need to be constantly drinking liquids, eating the right foods so that you maintain your energy levels, because the body takes up a lot of energy to maintain this constant body temperature. And then the animals must eat regularly, like I've just said, you must eat regularly. That's why we eat so many times a day. Other organisms don't require to eat as much as we do because of their type of uh, regulatory systems in their bodies, the temperature regulatory systems. But for us, the animals as well as human beings, we need to constantly eat regularly. So because our bodies are constantly busy maintaining the temperature, working on other parts of the homeostasis as well. Humans are mammals and function at an optimum core temperature of 37 degrees Celsius. That's our temperature here. You see, you'll notice when we go around the malls or anywhere, either at schools, wherever you travel to, especially since COVID started, you are checked for temperature. Whenever, even before COVID, whenever you'd go to a doctor and you are sick, the first thing they would do, they'd want to take your temperature, because temperature is very telling. Temperature is the one thing that would tell you if there's anything wrong in the body. Temperature will tell you because it alters a lot of functions in your body. So now if you go and let's say you want to go to school and you get to the gate and they take your temperature and it is above this, then they can't allow you in because chances are you might be sick and you have a fever and you need to go get tested. So that's how the doctor would function as well. When they take your temperature, the temperature would tell them that, okay, something is wrong, then they can move on with the other steps. This is the temperature at which all human enzymes function best. So 37 degrees Celsius is the temperature in which all human enzymes function best. Deviations from a core temperature of 37 degrees Celsius can be life-threatening, like we just said. It can be very life-threatening because if enzymes function best at 37 degrees Celsius and you get to, when your temperature is taken and it is about 38 to maybe 40 degrees, then that is very bad because it means the enzymes are not functioning at their optimum conditions. And all processes that are regulated or controlled by those enzymes will then be affected. And like we said, I always mention this and I always need you to remember it. When one part of the body suffers, it is connected, our body is connected. Ultimately, the whole body would suffer. That's why when someone has a heart disease, you'd find them lying down on the bed because it would have affected the entire body. And then overheating is far more dangerous than underheating. Underheating is when you're becoming colder. Why? Because at high temperatures, when you're overheating, then you can denature enzymes. The enzymes can be denatured quite easily, and then you destroy completely their structure. And when you destroy the structure, then you destroy the function. That will affect even other organs that function at certain temperatures. It will affect everything. The biggest and most important homeostatic organ for thermoregulation in humans is what? Is the skin. The skin is the biggest and the most important homeostatic organ. Why? It is a layer. You see, skin is all around, it's our layer. So, of course, it would be the most important homeostatic organ because what happens when you're too hot, you have a high fever, you put, it's advised that we put maybe a cloth around so that you can cool down, it helps with that, it regulates your temperature. It's the first point of contact for any forms of temperatures that can alter your body. The structure of the human skin. Human skin is a protective layer that covers the entire body. That we know. You don't even need to be told this, right? Even if you are asked the definition of the human skin, you should be able to know this is a protective layer that covers your entire body. All your whole body is covered by skin. It forms a barrier between the inner body and the outer environment. If it wasn't for the skin, our bodies would be exposed. Can you imagine that? Then we'd be prone to infections because then there's no skin protecting us. We'd be prone to a lot of things that would affect us negatively. So our skin is like a capsule that is protecting us and keeping us safe. The skin prevents the underlying tissues from drying out because under the skin it's moist. There's blood, it's just moist. Now, if we didn't have that skin, our body or tissues would be exposed. And then through that exposure, then we'd dry out, and then it would affect the body's functioning also. It also prevents bacteria and other pathogens from entering the body. That's why I said we'd be prone to infections, because then bacteria and other infections or pathogens would just easily get inside our bodies. But now, because of skin, we touch things everywhere. We touch even things that are dirty, and that's why we need to constantly wash our hands, because there's a lot of bacteria roaming around. Because of the skin, we are protected in that way. If it wasn't for the skin, they would easily enter our bodies. Remember now with the issue of COVID, can you imagine if we didn't have skin? We are advised to wash our hands. Should you ever, probably, you wouldn't know, you are in contact with a surface or anyone who has COVID. Let's say they are passing you their money and they are coughing. So chances are the virus is now on this banknote, right? Then you touch that banknote, but it doesn't mean now you are infected with COVID. Why? Because as soon as you wash your hands with soap or with the sanitizer, then you are killing off that virus on your hands. The only time it would get inside your system, it's either through your eyes, your nose, or your mouth. Those openings there. But just on the skin, it wouldn't happen unless you have cuts on the skin. But as long as your skin is fully covered and it is healthy, then you are fine. But then imagine now, if we didn't have skin, then chances are we would have died a long time ago, because we would have had all these bacteria and viruses attacking us so easily. You understand, guys? That was the case as well with HIV and AIDS. Remember when HIV was still a very, very huge issue going around, and there was a lot of stigma around when people still didn't understand it properly. At that time, people were even scared of touching anyone with HIV and AIDS. But as soon as the more we learned about the virus, the more we understood it better. You could even just touch that blood and you wouldn't get infected. The only time you'd get infected is if there was an opening, right? It goes through any openings in our body. It's the same thing with the COVID. So we've always known about viruses and how they function. So our skin is playing a very, very big role in protecting us that way. If the skin is cut or damaged in any way, it will quickly heal itself. You have noticed this. If you get a cut on your skin, then very quickly, then some black stuff will form around there. Then after a few maybe days later, it would be completely healed. You remember that when you remember the whole process there is when you get a cut, then the white blood cells come through to quickly form blood clots there, so that it protects that layer of skin that is open, so that when the clots are formed over there, nothing can enter. So that is that's a quick reaction. It protects you that way. The skin is what is the largest organ? I'm going to ask this a lot. What is the largest organ of the body? It is the skin. Please always remember the skin is also an organ. I know you might not recognize it as one because it's not structured like the other organs we know, but skin is an organ with a different structure and different function. Since it forms the interface between the body and the external environment, it has an important role to play in regulating body temperature. So skin plays a very, very important role in regulating body temperature. The skin consists of two main layers. These are, let me highlight it as we go. We have these two main layers of the skin. We have the epidermis. I'm sure you've heard about this a lot of times. Ne? This is a relatively thin layer made of stratified epithelium. The epidermis contains keratin, which is a protein which makes it waterproof. So the skin here has what? The epidermis contains keratin, this protein. This protein makes it waterproof. You'll see a lot about, I'm sure you've learned about keratin before in other forms of cells, ne? It also becomes thicker and harder in places where there is more friction, such as the soles of it. That is still skin over there, guys. It's just that there it's harder. It's designed that way. It's harder there because there's lots of friction that occurs because we are constantly walking. And then the face would be softer because there's never any friction with the face, really. There shouldn't be any friction with the face. So that is why. The outermost cells of the epidermis are dead. And then the innermost layer of the epidermis produces a pigment called melanin. The innermost layer produces this pigment called melanin, which protects underlying tissues from the sun's harmful ultraviolet rays. The epidermis therefore functions as a protective and waterproofing layer. It makes sense why it's a waterproofing because, guys, we are always getting wet when we bath, whether it rains on you when you shower, but you don't melt or the water doesn't suddenly flood your inner parts of the body. Why? Because it's waterproof. The water just touches your outer layer and then you wipe it off and you're fine. It doesn't go inside because the skin is protecting us. So it is waterproofing layer and it is a protective layer. The other part I wanted us to discuss is this part of melanin. Melanin here is found in the innermost layer of the epidermis. So it's a pigment melanin. You've probably heard this melanin on fleek and all those things. We, the darker people, the people who are darker, we have a lot more melanin than the people who are lighter in shade. So that means Black people have more melanin than the other races, Blacks and Indians, you know. So we'll discuss all those at a later stage just for interest's sake. I'll put as an insert on explaining melanin. But yes, there, you understand this now. These are things you probably always knew, but now they are put into paper. Now it's more formal, ne? And then the dermis, we have the epidermis and we have the dermis. Remember, wait, before I continue, the epidermis, remember there's an outermost cells and the innermost cells. The outermost ones are dead, and the innermost ones are of the epidermis. They produce this pigment called melanin. So remember those two layers there. Then the dermis. The dermis is a thicker layer that contains a lot of soft areolar connective tissue. This was covered in grade 10. I hope you still remember it, which joins the skin loosely to the underlying muscle tissues. So this one here is in charge of connecting the skin, the skin, this thick layer of skin to the underlying muscle tissues. That's how it's connected. So it's not just floating, it's connected to the body. This layer contains the following structures. We have the hair follicles. So the hair follicles are found where? In the dermis. The hair grows from these follicles and is kept lubricated and water resistant by oil secreted by the sebaceous gland alongside the follicle. A muscle is attached to the side of the follicle to raise the hair when the person is either cold or frightened. Effect of adrenaline. Remember adrenaline? There is adrenaline again. What happens with adrenaline? It's responsible for the fight or flight response. So here, when you, of course, you'd be freaked out or you'd be you'd react in that way when the adrenaline is released. Then your body reacts quite quickly in such a way. Ne? It's either you'll be running away or you'll be fighting, but a lot of energy is induced there, and then that reaction that is induced over there would cause what? Your hairs to raise, or even your paws to it's what do we call it, Conjure? It's when you have goosebumps. So you can either get goosebumps when you're really, really sad, really scared, or angry, or when you are really, really amazed by something, it gets like that. Even when you're cold, then you'd get goosebumps. Then your hairs are raising there. The small hairs all around the body would raise. And then in humans, this is a vestigial function. In humans, that is a vestigial function. So you understand that dermis has this layer, which is hair follicles. Please study this work, guys. Further from this, study it, understand it, because it will be asked in your tests and exams. Hair grows from these follicles, remember, and is kept lubricated and water resistant. So hair needs to constantly be lubricated, or else it will fall off. And then the sweat glands. These are coiled glands with a duct leading to a pore on the surface of the skin. They release a watery secretion, which also contains some salts and urea. They help with temperature control and excretion of waste products. Who knew that sweat contains some salts and urea? Did you know that? I bet you didn't. That's why after a workout, you need to go take a bath, because then you have been sweating. It's a hot, hot day, and you've been sweating and you've been working out. And then now, if you do not bath, you would likely smell because of all that excretion of waste on your skin, which now needs to be removed through bathing or taking a shower. So remember, the skin consists of two main layers. We studied the epidermis, then the dermis. And then those two layers also have their own layers that we had studied again. And then what other ones? There's the blood vessels, which is found in the dermis, right? The blood vessels are found in the dermis. Blood vessels is an extensive network of blood. This is an extensive network of blood vessels runs throughout the dermis and controls how much heat is brought near the skin surface. The blood vessels also contain white blood cells to combat infection if the skin is damaged. Blood in the blood vessels transports waste products to the sweat glands. Remember, these blood vessels is important. Remember their function. We also mentioned that should you get a cut, what would happen? The white blood cells would quickly form. They would form a clot on your skin to protect your skin from infection. That's what happens. It's because of the white blood cells that would form the clot on your skin to prevent that infection. Then these blood vessels transport what? They transport waste products to the sweat glands. So these ones that you find here on the dermis, they will transport waste products to the sweat glands. And what else do? They control how much heat is brought near the skin surface. These ones here. And then you also have sensory organs. There are a number of receptors located in the dermis. These receptors sense heat, cold, pressure, touch, and pain. It makes sense why we would need sensory organs, so that your body can react accordingly. If something is coming on your skin and it is too hot, your body would need to react in that it's through the flight response, right? When something that is too hot comes on your surface, the skin, your body would immediately react to move away from that thing. And even if something is too cold, your body would instantly move away from that thing. Even with touch, our bodies are designed in such a way whereby if it's someone you know and someone you're comfortable with, chances are your skin wouldn't react in that bad way. But now, if it's a total stranger just coming to touch you, then the flight or fight response will kick in as well. It is because of these sensory organs which communicate with the rest of the body. And then the particular hormone would be released which will enact the particular reaction from you or from your body. So it's because of the sensory organs. So sometimes it's not really all you. It's not even. It happens through the sensory organs. You don't even need to feel something or think about it. The body's sensory organs do that. Then this is the three-dimensional cross-section of the human skin showing its structure, which we will recap just now together with you. You have the epidermis. There's the epidermis. You see it just at the very top, the one, the skin that we see here, that one, part of the epidermis. Then underneath the epidermis, you have the dermis. That one is in pink in color. There, that one over there. That's the dermis. And then you've got the hair root. Look at the hair root over there. Look at how deep your hair actually grows. Wait, you know, we only see this top part of the hair over here, where your hair grows. It's either your hair on your head or on your skin, on your body. Ne? But it actually goes deeper than that. Look at where it comes from. There's the hair root. We have the hair follicle over here. Here's the hair follicle, much like the roots of a tree. You see, it's in a way like that. Then you have the sweat glands over there. The sweat glands, they're like the ducts, which means they carry that liquid, that excess, the waste, and the urea and those salts to the pores. The pores are over there. You see the pores here, even the pores over there. The hair shaft, that is the one you see now, the hair that you see. Then there is those ones we didn't discuss, the touch corpuscle. There is the touch corpuscle. So those are sensory, those nerves, those sensory organs, the touch corpuscle, the free nerve ending over there, the sebaceous, which is oil. Sebaceous means oil. The sebaceous oil gland. Whenever we say sebaceous, it basically means oil gland. The hair erector muscle. There's the hair erector muscle. There's the sensory nerve fiber, that one in yellow over there. We have the pressure corpuscle. Pressure corpuscle. So this one, if you touch, if there's too much pressure here, this one is the one that senses the pressure. This one, the touch corpuscle, is the one that senses the touch. You understand that? Then we've got the artery. Artery is red in color. That one in red. The one in blue is the vein. Remember that the significance of red and blue? Red is the one that is oxygenated and blue is deoxygenated blood. So it carries that. And then adipose, which is the fat tissue. So underneath your skin, then there'll be that fat layer. Underneath these two layers of skin. Remember that epidermis and the dermis are the layers of skin. Then beneath that, you'd have the fat layer, which is the adipose or the fat tissue. So we'll continuously learn about this and study it further. But for now, just understand the basic structure of the skin. Hey, Bob, yes, when we say it depends. I think I for one, whenever I say skin, I'd be referring to epidermis. But in life sciences, we have just learned that skin is actually both epidermis and dermis. So it means in life sciences terms, whenever in life sciences we are speaking of skin, we are actually referring to both the epidermis and the dermis. But when even in your everyday life, whenever you say my skin, what I know you are usually referring to the epidermis, right? The outer layer, the one that we see, that is the one. But now, the more we study this, the more we understand that, yes, it actually makes sense why the skin would be the protective layer. It's not just the thin layer that we see that is protecting us. It goes deeper. All of this part is part of the skin that is actually protecting our bodies, because underneath this fat layer, that's when you can find other organs in your body. So you see, this very, very big part here is the one layer that is protecting your whole body. So it makes sense now. We understand it better. But yes, when we refer to skin, it is epidermis and dermis. So maybe we should alter our everyday language, né? And we should start speaking those terms and say, hey, my outer layer or my epidermis is is hurt or a certain way, but skin we've just learned is epidermis and dermis. So both of them we are referring to skin. Nah, you understand, right, Bob? So that's what happens, guys. This is how our skin is like. It makes sense, like I just said to Bob, that all these functions of the skin protecting us and the skin being the largest organ. Now, when we look at this diagram, you can imagine this organ is all around our body. So yes, this one is really, it is really the largest organ, and it makes sense how it would be protecting us. There's a lot going on under the skin. There's a lot going on under this layer here that we can see. A lot more that we never even thought possible. Look at all of this, all of these things here. And then below here on the next slide, I will show you that below the dermis, remember the dermis is a layer of subcutaneous fat. This fat containing adipose cells smoothes out the contours of the body. It helps to insulate the body from heat loss and provides storage for reserve energy. The thicker the layer of adipose tissue, the better insulated the body is. So the more fat layer you have there in those adipose cells, the more insulated your body is. That means you, even in cold weathers, you wouldn't feel as cold as an organism with the smaller layer of fat than you. Ne? Because the main purpose of this is to insulate the body from heat loss and to provide storage for reserve of energy. So those organisms who are thicker with a bigger layer of fat have greater reserves or greater storages of energy, and they are more insulated from, their heat is more, their body is more insulated, meaning, and the temperature is regulated. They don't easily lose heat and they don't easily get cold. Ne? So that is it from me today, the structure of the skin. Tomorrow we will discuss the sweating and we'll finish up with the topic of homeostasis, where we finish up with the other reactions that happen on the skin, such as sweating, and how the skin would react to temperatures. What exactly happens? Are you okay? Any questions? Okay, if there are no questions, then see you tomorrow, everybody. Bye.